Welcome back to another class on the treasures of mishnayot. We are in mishnayot of Berachot, Perek Vav, Mishna Bet. This will be a new Mishnah. Before we begin today's Mishnah, yesterday we did not go over from Perek Vav, Mishnah Aleph on the top. We'll go over that. It's going to be very simple. But before we do that, I want to just elaborate on Rabbi Yehuda's opinion when it comes to Yirakot. I don't think I was clear enough. We said it, but I want to be able to elaborate so people can understand what is going on. We spoke about, the Tana Kama said, when it comes on the fruits of the land, Perot ha'aretz, legumes, squash, watermelon, right, things like that, the blessing that you're going to say is going to be Borei Peri ha'adama. Now, that's why it's called fruits of the ground. The Hashem who creates the fruits of the ground. However, when it came to Yirakot, when it came to vegetables, the Tana Kama said over here, Ve'ala Yirakot, the Tana Kama said, for example, cabbage, radish, lettuce, onion, spinach, and so on and so forth, things that are in this family, the Tana Kama said, you're also going to say Borei Peri ha'adama. Came Rabbi Yehuda, Omer Rabbi Yehuda says, no, Borei minei dishaim, right? Borei minei dishaim, the one who creates all types of herbs, like cabbage, radish, lettuce, onion, spinach. Now when you look at it, you ask yourself one question, why are the Perot ha'aretz very different than the Yirakot? Doesn't this come from the ground? Doesn't this come from the ground? They're both identical. So why can Rabbi Yehuda agree? Just like over here he says, when it comes to Perot ha'aretz, like squash, watermelon, legumes, all these things, he says clearly, he can agree that it's Borei Peri ha'adama. But why when it comes to vegetables, like cabbage, radish, lettuce, onion, spinach, which are the herbs of the ground, why do you have to tell me Borei minei deshaim? So it's a very important rule by Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says that whenever you're blessing a blessing on any type of food, you want to give it the appropriate blessing that brings out the item from it. Let me read it for you in Hebrew. Shelidat Rabbi Yehuda tzarich levarech al kol min v'min bracha miyuchedet. According to Rabbi Yehuda, you need to bless on every single kind of fruit or herb is designated blessing. Sheyeh heker hamin beloshon bracha. That you should be able to recognize in the blessing on what he is saying the bracha on. For example, if I'm going to say, according to Rabbi Yehuda, if I'm going to say Borei Peri ha'adama on an onion, it doesn't sound that this is a fruit. Or on a spinach, it doesn't sound that it's a fruit. Or on lettuce, it doesn't go because it's not a fruit. But what are they? There are herbs. Also, if that's an herb, so it's better for me to say Borei minei dishaim, one who creates all types of herbs, which is like cabbage, radish, lettuce, onion, and spinach. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, he wants to go ahead and he wants to tell you that if you're going to go ahead now and you're going to bless on an onion or spinach or lettuce, Borei minei dishaim, it sounds, the bracha is fit for that object, for the spinach, lettuce, whatever it's going to be. But if I'm saying Borei Peri ha'adama on the fruit, lettuce is not a fruit. Onion is not a fruit. A fruit, you can tell me, squash, watermelon, legumes, and so on and so forth. So that's why, according to Rabbi Yehuda, when it comes to the Perot ha'aretz, the fruits of the land, right, the fruits of the ground, you're going to bless Borei Peri ha'adama. When it comes to the vegetables, we're going to say Borei minei deshaim. Again, why? Because Rabbi Yehuda learns that the type of food should be recognized in the wording of the blessing. So when I'm blessing Borei minei dishaim, spinach sounds like it's an herb, which is dishaim. If I say Borei Peri ha'adama, spinach does not sound that it's a fruit. That's why, according to Rabbi Yehuda, he says when it comes to Yirakot vegetables, you're going to say Borei minei dishaim. When it comes to the fruits of the ground, you're going to say Borei Peri ha'adama. However, the Kahati concluded and it said, Ve'en halacha ki Rabbi Yehuda. Halacha is not like Rabbi Yehuda. Whether you are eating fruits of the ground, whether you are eating the vegetables, the halacha is always going to be Borei Peri ha'adama. 1 second, but even though it doesn't sound like it's a fruit, it's fine. But the bottom line is, it comes from the ground. It's good enough for us to bless on it. Borei peri ha'adama. Okay, so I wanted to get that out of the way. Now, also, let's just do the Mishnah with you on top. Okay, so the Mishnah begins. Ketzat mivarachin ala pirot. How does one bless on fruits? Al pirot ha'ilan omer borei pri ha'etz. On the fruits of the tree, you're going to bless borei pri ha'etz. Chutz min hayayin, except for wine. Sha'al hayayin omer borei pri ha'gefen. On the wine, you're going to say borei pri ha'gefen. Ve'al pirot ha'aretz omer borei pri ha'adama. And on the fruits of the land, you're going to say borei pri ha'adama. Chutz min ha'pat, except for bread. Sha'al ha'pat hu omer, because on bread you're going to bless hamotzi lechem min ha'aretz. Ve'al ha'yirakot omer, and on the vegetables you're going to say borei peri ha'adama. Rabbi Yud omer borei minei deshaim. And we explained the machlokah there, and we gave the reasons to why by wine and why by bread and also why by mishnayot all the berachot change. We explained all this in the previous class for Perek Vav, Mishna Aleph. Okay, now we can begin our new Mishnah today. So, one more time, we are in Perek Vav, Mishnah Bet. The Kahati begins with an introduction. Lamadnu b'Mishnah hakodemet. We have learned in the previous Mishnah, she'al pirot ha'aretz mivarachim borei pri ha'adama. On the fruits of the ground, you're going to bless the blessing of borei pri ha'adama. Right, that's what we saw. Borei pri ha'adama. Ve'ilu al pirot ha'ilan. But when it comes to the fruits of the tree, av shegam eila gidulim min ha'aretz. Even though they grow from the ground, correct? Because the tree comes from the ground. The apples on the tree, they get all their nourishment from the ground. Nevertheless, in mivarachin alahem borei pri adama ela borei pri ha'etz. You're not going to bless on them borei pri ha'adama, but rather you're going to bless on them borei pri ha'etz. Shemipnei chashivutam, because they were given an importance. Hotzi'um miklal pirot ha'aretz. We took them out from the rule of the fruits of the ground. V'kavu lahem bracha miyuchedet u'mefuretet. And the Chacham, they establish a blessing which is designated and specific for it. V'klal amru b'gimor. And there was a rule that was said in Masechet Berachot in Daf Mem Amur Aleph. Now I want to just show you something over here. We know that on banana a person has to bless borei pri adama. So how could that be? How could it be on banana you have to bless borei pri adama? Now that's what we want to actually see today, that the Kahati is going to explain. How do you know when to bless the blessing on a fruit of a tree, borei pri ha'etz, and how are you going to know to bless on a fruit of a tree, borei pri ha'adama? How are we going to know this? So we're going to go like this. So he says like this. V'klal amru b'gemor. There was a rule that was stated in the Gemara, in Masechet Berachot Daf Mem Amur Aleph, b'shvil lahachin ben pri ha'etz li pri adama. In order to be able to understand when does one bless the blessing of borei pri ha'etz, when does one bless borei pri adama? How do you know that? In order to be able to make this understanding, im kishinatel ha'pri yisha'eran av vehu chozer u'motzi pirot acherim harei ze ilan. Here we go. If when I take the fruit from the tree and the branch remains and it produces more fruit, that's considered to be a tree. Umivarachin al pirotav borei pri ha'etz. And you're going to bless on its fruit borei pri ha'etz. So one more time. How do I know to bless borei pri ha'etz? Very simple. When I pluck an apple from the tree, if I take the fruit and the branch produces more fruit after some time, you know that this is a tree. You're going to bless borei pri ha'etz. However, continues the Kahati, aval, however, kol shechishinatel hapri, anytime when you're going to go out and take the fruit, lo yishaer anav sheyachzor v'yotzi pirot acherim. The branch is not going to be able to produce more fruits. אין מברכים על פירותיו בורא פרי העץ, אלא בורא פרי האדמה. You're not going to bless on it בורא פרי העץ, but rather you're going to bless on it בורא פרי האדמה. So it comes out over here that, how do you know to bless בורא פרי האדמה? If when I take the fruit and the branch doesn't give me more fruit, then you're going to go ahead and you're going to bless borei peri ha'adama. So that is the difference between the two brachot. How does one know to say borei peri ha'etz? If when you take the fruit and the tree, meaning the branch, produces more fruit, is borei peri ha'etz. If, however, when I take the fruit and the fruit does not produce more fruits, then the blessing is going to be borei peri ha'adama. Okay. Mishnatenu ba lelamod dinei hato'eh beberkat hapirot. Now our Mishnah is going to come and teach us the halachot if one made a mistake in the blessing of fruits. So the Mishnah begins, Berech ala pirot ha'elan borei peri ha'adama. What happens if a person went and on the fruit of the trees, right, on the fruit of a tree, you said borei peri ha'adama. Instead of saying borei peri ha'etz, you said borei peri ha'adama. We're going to see now, yatsa b'di'evet. You fulfill your obligation post factum, meaning initially we want you to say borei peri ha'etz. But if you said by accident borei peri ha'adama, it's also fine. So let's see that one more time. Berech ala pirot ha'elan borei peri ha'adama. If a person went ahead and he blessed on the fruits of the tree, the blessing borei peri ha'adama, kegon, for example, sheta'a bebracha, he made a mistake in the blessing, ubimakom borei peri ha'etz, instead of saying the blessing of borei peri ha'etz, amar borei peri ha'adama, he said borei peri ha'adama. That's case number one. Or sheta'a bepri, or maybe he made a mistake in the fruit itself. Shechashav al pri etz shehu peri ha'adama, because you thought that this fruit that you had in your hand, which was a fruit from the tree, you thought that this was a fruit from the ground. So since in your mind you think that this is a fruit from the ground, you went ahead and you said the blessing of borei peri ha'adama because you weren't sure, meaning you didn't know that this was a fruit from the tree, and you thought it was a fruit from the ground, and you went ahead and you said borei peri ha'adama. In these two cases, we're going to tell you, yatsa yidei chovato bebracha zo. You fulfilled your obligation in this blessing. So one more time. If you took a fruit, case number one, if you took a fruit, let's say I took an apple, and by accident, instead of saying borei peri ha'etz, I said borei peri ha'adama. Yatsa, I fulfilled my obligation. We'll see why. Or I made another mistake in the fruit. When I took an apple, I thought that this apple, I'm just giving you an example, I thought that this apple comes from the ground. In my eyes, it looked like a vegetable almost. So therefore I said, okay, if it's from the ground, therefore, not knowing that this comes from the tree, I went ahead and I said borei peri ha'adama. In both of these cases, we're going to tell you, you fulfill your obligation in the bracha. Why? Because he says, Shigam perot ha'ilam bichlal peri ha'adama hem. Because the fruits of the tree are also included in the fruits of the ground. How? Sha'arei ha'ilan yonek min ha'adama. Because the tree gets its nourishment from the ground. So by you saying in an apple, borei peri ha'adama, you're not really yet lying. Or you said it on a grape, borei peri ha'adama, you're not really lying. Why am I not lying? Because the bottom line is the tree is connected to the ground and it gets its nourishment from the ground and it's able to give it to the fruits on the tree. Umikan, and from here, she'im adam misupak bepri. Right now, Rabotai, you go ahead and you take a fruit that you don't know nothing about. You don't know if it grows on a tree or if it grows from the ground. You don't know where it comes from. You don't know if it's a fruit of the tree or if it's the fruit of the ground. You have a doubt. Imu pri ha'etz or pri ha'adama, that you have a doubt if it's the fruit of a tree or the fruit of the ground. What bracha should you say? You don't know. Right now you don't know. You have nobody to call. You have nobody to ask. You can't Google it. Nothing. You don't have a rabbi to call. What bracha should you say? Yivarech borei peri ha'adama. You should say the blessing of borei peri ha'adama, like we explained, because if this fruit is from the ground, good, I said borei peri ha'adama. If this fruit is from the tree, I didn't really lose nothing. Why? Because the tree gets its nourishment from the ground, so therefore good. B'di'evet yotzeh. That's what it tells you over here, that if a person went ahead and he has a fruit in his hand and he's not sure, does he bless on it borei pri ha'etz or borei pri adama, because he doesn't know where it comes from, we're going to tell you, let him bless borei pri adama, because either way you're going to look at it, you're going to fulfill your obligation. He brings it down the name of the Rosh and the Tur.